At ProShot, our motto is seeing is believing, but it could easily be change is good. We like change, and we embrace change. For our players to be successful, they have to accept change in their shooting mechanics. But ProShot is always changing, and we believe this is what sets us apart. If there is a better way to teach an aspect of shooting, we will change. If there is a better shooting technique for our players, we will change. The one movie moment that best depicts ProShot is Ratatouille.
This is the way things are. You can't change nature.
Change is nature, Dad. The part that we can influence. And it starts when we decide.
Where are you going?
With luck, forward.
This summer we have discovered a new aspect of the turn, but it also affects the sweep and sway.
Okay, so let's talk about power, because power is so important in a jump shot. Power is the most important thing you can have on a jump shot. That may surprise you that we actually say that. But think about it. If you're not strong enough to get the ball up to the basket, or you don't have enough strength to shoot properly, then does anything really matter? No. You could have the greatest form in the whole world, but if you have no power. So we think that shooting really starts with power. Now, where do you get power from? Well, we've talked about before, but you do get it from the dip. The dip is important. We also think the sweep and sway. Coming forward, you know, people always say, Coach, what do you mean by the sweep and sway? And we think the number one thing is you just kind of come forward. Just kind of jump forward. It's power. And then the third thing and the most important thing that we believe that gets you power is really the hip and the shoulder. And we believe the hip. Not understand what I'm talking about. Well, if we're going to go from 0 to 90, or if we go 30 to 50 or whatever, we've got to get that hip around. Think about other sports. A lot of other sports use the hip. Baseball. You look at baseball hitters, baseball pitchers, and that hip has to come around. Football quarterback, they got to get that hip. Basketball's really the same thing. You know, let's compare it to a heavyweight boxer. And if I'm a boxer and I just come at you and I'm just throwing jabs, but I'm not putting anything behind it, I'm not going to be very powerful. In fact, I don't have a whole lot of power. So think about how a prize fighter, a heavyweight fighter, gets all of its power from. Well, they're going to get it from the shoulder, but it's really going to come from that hip. As you come around, that's where the power comes from. The other thing that we want to talk about is the sweep and sway. Because so for the longest time, we kind of believed the sweep and sway was kind of different. It was kind of one of the parts of the forest. Well, one of the things that we're noticing now is the sweep and sway and the turn have a lot in common. Because here's the thing, if you get that hip around and you get that shoulder around, you're going to naturally do a little sweep and sway. So really, the sweep and sway becomes a byproduct of the turn, which kind of makes sense. So we're still going to call it the sweep and sway, and we still like it because the feet sweep forward and the shoulders sway back. But for the most part, it really starts with just kind of coming forward, 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches, and getting that hip and shoulder around. And you're going to see way better alignment, and the biggest thing you're going to see is you're going to see power. Recently, I was in Wisconsin conducting a camp, and we had 2 players in the camp, and one was a huge football player. I mean, he was probably 6'1", maybe 230, 240, but just muscle bound, very, very muscle bound. Then we had another player who was an 8th grader, but he was very small. He was, I would say, maybe 5 foot, probably 85 pounds. Didn't look like an 8th grader. And we gave them the turn, and we gave them the power. But the big guy kind of resisted. His body just wasn't accepting it. And it was so funny because when you watch the younger kid shoot, I mean, he was going out 23, 24 feet from the basket. I mean, he was just launching. It was beautiful. It was awesome. And then the other kid, the football player, the guy who looked like a middle linebacker, was struggling from about 12 to 15 feet. I mean, he was almost airballing. And I thought, you look at them and everyone says, shooting's all about power. But the one kid is 85 pounds. And then the football player probably weighed about 225, 230. I mean, he could bench press that kid. He could break him over his leg. And yet, because of the power of the turn, because he got that hip around, the one kid, the younger one, the one without the muscles, could shoot from 23 feet out. And the older one, he struggled. And he did get better. But it's amazing that when you watch little kids, they can do this. They have power because they can get that hip and shoulder around. And it makes so much sense. And that's why everybody needs to try it, because it really does work.